Jockeying for additions to the legislation. Here's the Prime Minister. Let's listen.
Hello everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Habituellement, les étudiants attendent avec
Students are waiting impatiently at the coming of the month of May. Classes are over. You have like 2 exams left. You're about to start your summer job, spend more time with your friends. But this year, it's different. The pandemic creates much uncertainty and instability for everyone, including our youth. Those about to get their diploma weren't able to use their last semester like they would have planned, and now they have the hard time to get back to the job market. Those who are still studying are facing similar obstacles. Job internships have been canceled. Summer jobs are rare. You're numerous to ask not only what you will do in the coming months, but how will you pay for your school fees for the coming year. So last week, we've announced a $9 billion plan to help you to get through the crisis. First, we've announced that the emergency benefits for students that will give you $2,500 per month for summer months. And if you have a handicap or if you have somebody, you will get more. At the same time, we're investing to create 76,000 jobs, additional jobs for students in the sectors that need help or are contributing actively in the fight against COVID-19. Those jobs are added to those offered during the frame of the Canada summer jobs.
COVID-19. We're going to make sure you have support too. Students helping in the fight against COVID-19 this summer will soon be eligible for $1,000 to $5,000 through the new Canada Student Service Grant for volunteer hours. We're also going to be providing specific support for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation students. For graduate students and those conducting research, we're going to extend scholarships, fellowships, and grants so your work can continue. And we're doubling student grants for low and middle income students for 2020-2021. Taken together, our government has a $9 billion plan to help students and recent grads get through the next few months. Since we introduced this plan, we've been working with the opposition parties on legislation that will get this help to young people as quickly as possible. I'll be heading to Parliament shortly, where we will introduce a bill to put the Canada Emergency Student Benefit in place. Les dernières semaines ont été difficiles pour tout le monde.
The last few weeks were hard for everyone, but our government is acting to support you during this crisis. To help parents, we will modify the Canadian benefit for children in May. After closing the schools, the school closings, parents have improvised themselves as music teacher, regular teachers, restaurant owners, and the rest. This situation is heavy on the parents, so we're giving them a hand with this extra money with the Canadian Children's Benefit. Our government has increased the credit for GST. I want to remind everyone that this year, if you must pay income taxes, you have up to the month of August to make your payments.
The pandemic has been hard on everyone. That's why our government is stepping up to support you. To help parents who've got their hands full these days, our government will be boosting the CCB payment in May. And to help lower income Canadians, we supplemented the GST credit. I also want to remind everyone that this year, if you owe income tax, you have until August to make your payment. Yesterday, Minister Haidu and Dr. Tam provided an update on our latest modeling. And the good news is that Canadians are stepping up to keep each other safe. In fact, in many parts of the country, the curve has flattened, so we have to keep it up. We're seeing some progress because people from coast to coast to coast are making sacrifices and following public health rules. So let's stick to it. Let's stay home, wash our hands, and when we go out, let's stay 2 meters away from others. Starting this weekend in Nova Scotia, the Canadian Forces Snowbirds will head across Canada to salute Canadians doing their part to stop the spread of COVID-19. As we watch the snowbirds fly over our homes, let's remember that we are all in this together. Happy to take your questions now.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va maintenant passer à la période de questions, en commençant par le téléphone. 4 questions sont suivies. Opérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you. Merci. First question, Stephanie Levitt, the Canadian Press. Line open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Why aren't there measurable targets and standards attached to the national guidelines for lifting restrictions, the guidelines that were released yesterday, so that people can be confident the decisions are being made based on science rather than other considerations?
We worked very hard with the premiers across the country to ensure that we could get guidelines that reflected the foundational science and the best advice given by medical experts and scientists on what needed to be in place before provinces or regions could think about reopening. Every region, every province, every territory is facing a very different situation right now with different industries, different size cities, and different spread of COVID-19. That's why we needed to make sure that the foundational elements were there that we could all follow as Canadians, but recognize that different jurisdictions will act differently. But there is a common desire right across the country from all premiers to ensure that we're doing this right. Everyone understands that the danger of opening up too quickly or the wrong way could mean we come back into this situation where we are right now, and nobody wants that. So we're going to keep moving forward responsibly according to the guidelines.
Merci. Opérateur, prochaine question.
Merci. Thank you. Prochaine question, Michel Lamarche, TVA Nouvelle, à vous.
Peut-être sur mute.
Oui, bonjour. J'aimerais vous entendre.
I'd like to hear you
sur cette entente sur la
on this deal in the emergency benefit that didn't happen with the other parties. Do you feel like it's going to take more time and compared to the salary, the wage subsidy? And I'd like to hear you regarding the CFL and the request for financial help. And will you give the $150 million help that is requested by the Canadian Football League? Well, first I trust that every opposition party, all the parliamentarians, know that we must support our students. This is an immediate issue with students who do not know how they will find themselves a summer job, how they will pay their rent or even do their groceries. So we need to support them for this summer. We also need to support them in order that in the summer, in the fall, in the years coming, they will be able to succeed, to pay their school fees and benefit from the job and experience that they had this summer. So that's why we're going forth with the help for the students, but also by creating summer jobs for students across the country to help in the fight against COVID-19, to help the economy to start to restart, to relaunch. And I trust that even with the discussions continue with the parties, we all agree that we must help students, and I know that it will end up working. Regarding the CFL, we're currently looking at how we can support different organizations. We acknowledge that it's an important issue for the league and for many Canadians, and we continue to have discussions with them.
We are continuing to engage with various sectors, industries, and organizations who are facing disruptions because of COVID-19. The CFL has approached us about support. We know it's important to them. We know it's important to many Canadians, and those discussions are ongoing.
Merci. Prochaine question, opérateur.
Merci. Thank you. Prochaine question, Marie Bastel, Le Devoir, à vous.
Oui, bonjour. J'aimerais vous entendre sur les bonifications salariales pour les
I'd
travailleurs.
like to hear you regarding the salary, the wage subsidy for essential workers. You said that you would agree with the provinces so that those bonus would be paid, and you promised it on April 15th. It's been 2 weeks. What is blocking? Knowing that you agree with provinces for stuff like commercial rents. So there's probably something blocking with the provinces regarding the essential workers wage bonus. What's the problem and who is creating that problem? First, across the country, all the provinces and prime ministers premiers acknowledge that our essential workers do their job in situations that are even harder. And so this idea of giving a bonus is something great for everyone. It's a complicated element because it's a complicated program that will be delivered by the different provinces, and the different provinces have different parameters and needs for their essential workers. So we're concluding the deals with different provinces, and it's different than the commercial rents deal that will be the same across the country. This program acknowledges a difference in different provinces regarding essential workers, and we know it's important for many people, and we hope to have news for everyone to know.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Kelsey Johnson, Reuters. Line open.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for taking my question. I'm wondering, is Canada considering mandating meat plants to stay open like the U.S. President Donald Trump has done?
We understand how important it is to ensure the supply of food to Canadians right across the country. And we're watching with interest and concern some of the issues facing meat producers and the supply chain across the agricultural industry. We need to make sure that those supply chains can keep functioning, but we also need to make sure that the people who work in those supply chains and will continue to need to work in difficult circumstances over the coming weeks and months as we continue to battle COVID-19 are kept safe. The priority for us is both things, keeping people safe and ensuring a good supply of food to Canadians. We will make sure we're doing them both together. Okay. We
know it's really important to ensure the food supply chain in order to deliver food to Canadians. And we know it's also important to ensure the safety of workers on that supply chain so that we can count on them for the weeks and months coming in difficult situations. And we will do what we need to do in order to ensure those two principles and ensure that we have food for Canadians and protect the safety of workers.
CTV National News. I just want to follow up on my colleague on the phone. A few weeks ago, you said you weren't worried about food shortages. Right now, we have McDonald's not able to rely on Canadian beef, and we're not even talking about smaller restaurants or burger joints out there trying to stay alive. What is your specific plan when it comes to the beef industry, and are you bracing for other hits in the food industry?
We know that this pandemic is unprecedented and its impacts are far-reaching on our daily lives, on many different industries. We're working very closely with the agricultural industry to ensure that people get good, healthy food, particularly as we embark upon the summer where there will be a need and an ability to get lots of fresh vegetables and produce from across the country. We need to ensure that we're able to provide for that. We're working with provinces, we're working with the sector. Agricultural Canada is very much on this issue. We need to continue to stay vigilant because of the large disruptions across many different sectors in our country, including obviously agriculture. Nous travaillons avec l'industrie, nous travaillons avec les travailleurs agricoles,
agricultural workers. We make sure that we have the collaboration of provinces so that our food production here in Canada can continue. We need to be vigilant because we know that this situation is unprecedented and difficult, but we will continue to work in priority in order to ensure that we can feed Canadians.
Prime Minister Janet Silver, Global News. To follow on that, given that meat inspected by provincial meat inspectors can only be sold in that province, whereas meat inspected by federal inspectors can be sold nationwide, I'm wondering if you're looking at easing restrictions so that meat inspected by provincial inspectors can be sold nationwide?
I think we're open to all sorts of flexibility, ensuring that we can keep Canadians safe right across the country, but recognize that we are in a difficult situation. But as I understand it, the priority or the preoccupation and the challenges we're facing isn't as much around safety of the food produced, which continues to be ensured, but the safety of the workers working in those plants because of COVID-19. And that is something that requires a little more work and a little more coordination to ensure that we're keeping those workers safe and not just the food safe, which is always a priority for us all.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Slamish of GCBC. I want to go back to the federal guidelines for reopening. You talked about a common desire to get this right. Ottawa and the provinces have agreed on this criteria that actually talks about provinces needing to have support for human resources, support for vulnerable people, enough healthcare capacity. Do you think provinces that are pleading for volunteers and calling on the military to help meet that criteria?
These are not federal guidelines only. These are federal provincial guidelines. We worked together, and I think it's something that we need to highlight, because it's not often in this federation that the provinces and the federal government can come together as collaboratively as we have, not just on this particular issue, but over the past weeks in working with common goals and common desires to keep Canadians safe. And it really is something to note and to celebrate about Canadians, that we are working together so effectively. Provinces have the responsibility of ensuring the safety of their citizens while they look at reopening, and we are comfortable that these guidelines lay out a roadmap that everyone can follow, that principles that will allow them to put in the measures that will keep their citizens safe while looking at reopening various parts of the economy carefully. Okay.
I believe we need to underline that in a country where fights between the federal and the provinces come back pretty quickly, it's incredible to see how all the levels of government are working well together. We're united in our desire to serve Canadians well and to protect Canadians well across the country. And due to this, we can all be proud of this approach as a government, but as citizens. So these principles are not federal principles. Those are federal and provincial principles, because we agreed on those basic principles that will enable to ensure that we have the measures in place before we allow the reopening, or to start to reopen the economy in a more specific fashion across the country. And I'm trusting that we will do everything to keep the health of Canadians and safety of Canadians as a priority. Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to know where are you in your reflection on the tracking of people through mobile phones, or where do you put the line between the protection of citizens and privacy? Would you be agreeable of something that is non-constrained and volunteer? This is a good question, and it's a reflection that we keep on having. If we ask questions to Canadians, it would be open to enable some elements of things that wouldn't be normally permitted due to this pandemic, due to this emergency. But where exactly is the line, or where should it be drawn? That's still out there in the future. There's many companies in different countries who are working on approaches that are appropriate for their country. And we are looking at different possibilities, but I know that as a basic principle, even in a crisis situation, Canadians are really preoccupied by the protection of their personal life and personal information. And as a government, we share this preoccupation. So even in an emergency situation, we will be very, very careful in what we're ready to ask Canadians to do. It might be a possibility to enable volunteer choices, but this is still out for our decision-making process, and as we are looking at the reopening of the economy.
it's a really important question as to how we can ensure the privacy and data security of Canadians in this situation where we might have to look at new measures in terms of contact tracing and apps that provide more information. Getting that balance right will be extremely important. We've seen different countries around the world with different approaches to personal privacy try different things. We have a number of proposals and companies working on different models that might be applicable to Canada. But as we move forward on taking decisions, we're going to keep in mind that Canadians put a very high value on their privacy, on their data security, and we need to make sure we respect that even in a time of emergency measures and significant difficulty and crisis. We're going to get that balance right. There are possibilities around using voluntary measures, around other things, but every step of the way we will hold true to the values that mean so much to Canadians around privacy and security. These are things that people expect from their governments, and that's what we will stay focused on.
Merci beaucoup, c'est ce qui met fait la conférence de presse aujourd'hui.
Merci tout le monde.